My name is Lyle Watson. Welcome to NAC TV's Coffee Chat. We're pleased to have as our guest via Zoom today Liz Clayton, who is the Green Party representative in our upcoming federal election. Hello, Liz. Excuse
Good
me, and thank
afternoon.
you for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. Okay, we're going to start with a little bit of background on who Liz Clayton is and where you are and where you come from. If you could share some of that with us, Liz, we'd appreciate it.
Well, my age, it gets to be a longer story than many years ago. So I guess we should probably do the main points. I was an Air Force kid. We moved around a lot when I grew up. My dad was a pilot, and so we lived on bases throughout Canada and in Europe in post-war times. And eventually, though, I came to call Winnipeg my home and lived there for off and on for about 30 years. But 20 years ago, my partner and I decided we'd had enough of the city, and I was always drawn to the country and living by water and nature and whatnot. So we moved to the country 20 years ago, and we lived just off the escarpment by Notre Dame de Lourdes and
So you're in the
Rathwell.
you're in the Riding Mountain constituency then?
Well, I am now because we just got annexed.
Okay.
there's this tiny little corridor that comes down in the southeast corner, and we're at the very bottom of that corridor. So I couldn't be any further from the heart of the riding if I tried and still be in the riding. But are you in Neepawa yourself? Is that where you're from?
Yep.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So you have a good feeling of our constituency and the area that it covers and some of the issues that's facing our viewers and the constituents coming up for the election. Um, and you have been involved with the Green Party for quite a number of years, as I understand.
Mhm.
What got you motivated to join the Green, and what has your different positions and activities been within the Green Party?
Well, like I said, I've always been drawn to nature and stuff. So I guess first and foremost, you could call me an environmentalist. I care about our wildlands and our wilderness corridors. And now that I live in the rural area, like for a long time, and I have had a front row seat on what's been happening out here in the country in rural Manitoba. I think now more than ever, we need some passionate voices to stand up for our landmarks and what we have left of our natural prairie, because you probably notice it coming down in droves around your area. I've taken
Yes.
rides through Riding Mountain. Yeah. And it's funny because everyone says, well, you can't do anything about it. Private land ownership gives people the right to do that. And yeah, at this point, yes, that is true. But most people are upset about it. I have to say that the handful of people who are getting something out of this is far outweighed by the number of people who would like to see a little bit of it remaining. So I have some ideas for that. So should I just start with that, or are we getting ahead of the eight ball here?
No, no, go ahead.
Okay. Well, my idea is tax breaks for farmers. I think that we could probably give a real tax break on farmers who leave their wildlands intact. And I know we're crossing into different jurisdictions here, provincially and whatnot, but um, I think that it's important enough that different levels of government could work together to give that tax break to farmers, because it's definitely unfair to be taxed on land as though it were productive when it's not. So that is something we should work toward. And at the same time, I think we should de-incentivize whole scale land clearing by not making it a tax write off, because it's not like 1885 anymore. We're not doing Western expansion anymore. The land that's been left intact is been left because it's marginal land. Like all the
Yes,
good land was farmed right away, right? So
yes.
if there's a bit that's been left on the sides, it is marginal. And yes, we have the technology that we can now farm marginal land with zero till and heavier duty equipment. We can do it, and we can drain and tile and terraform to our heart's content. But should we be doing that to the marginal land? Like, this is original prairie, the the plants, the animals, the habitat that it provides. We can't replace it when it's gone, and we are losing it fast. So my plan, like, this is getting um, way out there. No, maybe not. Maybe not. Listen, hear me out. But I think we should have a different zoning for marginal land, where
Yes.
we can introduce some light homesteading and introduce people into those marginal lands because a lot of people want a little piece of prairie. We want to live in the country, but there are no places for us anymore. So by doing that, by changing the designation of marginal land, changing the zoning, we could have people populating wilderness corridors and adding to the life and health of our rural economies, because I've noticed a lot of aging out in my area, depopulation, and it affects our services and our community vitality. So yeah, I'm passionate about the prairies, and I love it here. So
So,
that's
so you're living on a farm or an acreage, or how much are you involved? What are you involved in terms of land space?
Well, we were really lucky to find something that a lot of people can't find anymore. And it was a piece of, like, it was 32 acres of basically bush with a house on it, with a
Okay.
clearing. So we've been doing intensive gardening, and we've built a winter greenhouse, like a northern style greenhouse on the south side of our house about 15 years ago, and inspired by a couple from Minnesota. And we grow greens all winter long in a low energy greenhouse, and we're feeding ourselves, friends, family, and even at this time of the year a little more for sale, to the community. So, like, we've been pioneering winter greenhouses. We can grow food all winter long here, so
Yes.
we're doing that kind of thing. And we have part-time jobs. I mean, I'm basically retired now, so I'm back at work half time, but I have time to do other things. So.
Okay. And what was your line of employment when you were working in the marketplace?
Well, I've had a lot of those too, Lyle. I was in
Mhm.
media for a long time, in radio, and
Oh,
I was in commercial radio, and then I moved into campus and community radio, which I managed at the University of Manitoba for several years, bringing a station back to life there. And then I was in arts, community arts, not for profit, at the Tiger Hills Arts Association. And then after that, I started working, I would call them McJobs out here. I worked in the general store, the diner. Um, and then now I'm an EA in the elementary school in Holland.
oh,
So yeah, I've been doing EA work for about 10 years.
okay. And what motivated you to become active and join the Green Party?
Oh, that was right. That was your first question. Well, I think they are the party that's most closely allied to my values. I do hear good things from other parties, and some of them are our ideas that they've taken, and we're very all right with that. If we have a good idea, we want everyone to adopt it. So please take our great ideas. We do our homework. I think that's important. People don't know that we're very fiscally responsible. Like, our platform is getting costed out right now by the Parliamentary Budget Office. And this is something we've done almost every single campaign. We get it costed out just to prove that we can do this, that it's not just a bunch of namby-pamby, dreaming. We need to have to pay for our ideas. So we're working on that. And we always come up with a budget. And so we're fiscally responsible. We think outside the box. At one time, I wouldn't have said we were either right nor left, but just, practical. But of course, you get put on a spectrum. And so I guess with our human rights values, you could say we're to the left a bit. We believe that people have the right to be who they are. And we're not
Yes.
going to tell people what to be and who to be and how to be it. That's not our business. So yeah, so so I think all of those things align totally with my values. So yes, that's why I'm green.
In regards to the fact that you're connected to nature and you obviously believe that we can be producing 12 months of the year, what is your feeling on climate change, Liz? Is climate change real, or is it something that we are starting to experience?
Okay, well, on the very, very slow motion oscillations of the planet Earth as we evolve, the climate is always changing. This is true, but uh, definitely human human endeavors in our atmosphere and the kinds of gases and emissions that we're putting into the air that we breathe on this thin living crust of the planet is changing with our activities. We're adding more carbon dioxide to it and other carbon greenhouse gases as well. And that is impacting the increase in the speed of global warming. And yes, we are contributing to climate change. And to think otherwise, I think is not being realistic. Like, where do you think all this exhaust goes if not the air? How do people think that it cannot change the actual composition of the atmosphere at a certain point? Like, it's science, right? It's total science. And yeah, I believe that we're contributing to it hugely. And not just the air, we're doing things to the water and to the very earth herself. So yeah, we're
Yes,
we're having a
yes.
big impact. We're making a mess, sir. We're making a mess. Yeah.
And what are some of the main issues that you're hearing from our viewers and constituents here in Riding Mountain? What are some of the main concerns, in your opinion, that you're hearing from our constituent men?
Well, one thing I'm hearing is anger at not having a voice. It's been a while since the prairies had a predominant government in power in Ottawa, and it really, really hit home for me how much voice we do not have on any federal party level, maybe even to a certain extent my own. When the whole, the Trump and the tariff thing hit the news, and all I heard was responses to other provinces' economies, but not ours. So along comes the 100% tariff from China because of our EV tariff on them for the canola products that we process here and distribute to them, like our definitely at least our second biggest client in the planet for that. And I didn't hear a response to that for a long time. It was pretty quiet. Every once in a while I'll hear something, but I'm just wondering, where the hue and cry is to help the prairie farmers, with the stuff we have stockpiled, the decisions we're making right now to plant for this year. And so, yeah, a lack of a prairie voice means there are a lot of angry people. And I think that's a big issue for us here. And our response to it as a party is, of course, the old proportionate representation style of democracy, a fair vote system where even the fringe parties and the fringe votes get that percentage of voices in Parliament. And we're totally for that. We should have had it 2 terms ago with the Liberals, but that was the first
Yeah.
promise I remember being broken actually by them. So yeah, that kind of lack of voice is a big factor in people. Um, I think they're worried about things that I mentioned already about um, rural economies, aging populations, keeping the young people here, keeping our industry here, keeping the businesses that we do have here healthy, keeping people shopping local instead of running to Costco all the time. Like we can do a lot ourselves, but when people see people, oh, we don't have a restaurant anymore. It's like, well, when did you go to it? Or, oh, there's a new restaurant going, but I went there once and I had to wait for my food. Try again. Give them a
Yes.
chance
Yeah.
to warm up. Like we can do a lot at the local level. So those are some of the main issues that I see. And I know specific to the riding, there's also an issue with some kind of a biofuel project, a huge one that's being proposed. And there are concerns about increasing what should be food production to put into fuel production. So
Yes.
there's a lot of questions. And also there's a lot of oh, well, you're familiar with Robert Angelic, the land developer who owns 250,000 acres in Saskatchewan and some over here in Manitoba. Well, there's wholesale clearing of land going on around Crane River right now, and it's beautiful land, it's headwaters, and it's all being just basically strip mined for farming right now. And
Yes.
I don't think there's any concern. Like, if I lived in the area, I'd be heartbroken. If I was a big land developer from some other province, I would be going, get that land into production. We need more canola right now. So yeah, I think that those are real factors too. And that sort of circles back to my original thing that, maybe we can farm smarter, and we have a lot of acres in production right now. Let's look at what we have in production, and let's use our corners more productively. Maybe we could do vegetables and fruit in the corners, and grains
Yes.
or commodity crops in the centers. Like we have a lot of land, we could maybe rethink it a little bit. Anyway.
What about healthcare? We hear a lot about healthcare. What's the Green Party's stance on the current healthcare, and how could you better it?
Oh well, we have a plan for recognizing that rural and remote communities are really struggling with trying to get timely health care. We have a plan to have, I haven't written down here, but I know this is kind of like, oh, I'm looking down and where did I put that about the healthcare? Of course, it's not going to jump up at me. But we have a plan for Indigenous-led community healthcare centers for the Indigenous communities and more telehealth options, more nurse practitioners in recognition of the distances that we travel. And also we were big believers in promoting preventative health care. Don't wait till people get sick. We would definitely fund more preventative measures in terms of dietary assistance, and we're definitely into the dental care because you can't have health if your teeth are
Yeah,
compromised. I mean, that's part of our bodies. So we're really happy that there is dental care right now for certain groups of people. But yeah, so we're big on that. We believe that we need to have more community-based healthcare and more quick access for remote communities through technology.
yes. You mentioned Indigenous peoples. How do you feel about circles for reconciliation, and are we advancing in our relationship with the First Nations people?
Yes, we are. We definitely are. I know way more First Nations communities than I did a few years ago. And I work in the school system, and we have students from all kinds of First Nations community in our schools. And from where I sit, I see more and more education devoted to looking at the other kind of Canadian history. Like I know I grew up with a set of stories and about how Canadian settlers came and they did all these amazing things in a brutal and hostile land. But there was a story before that story. And that story is a big part of what we learn in history now for our children. So I'm thinking that as years go on, we're going to have a much better understanding of who we are as people and more respect as well, because that respect thing has to be there too. And work in partnership because we all live here now. And, you
That's
know,
good to hear, Liz.
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of education in general, it's a big part of the budget, and I know
Mm-hmm.
it's, education is under the provincial jurisdiction. But
Yeah.
what is the Green Party's stance on our Riding Mountain constituency here in terms if you were elected? What would you like to see in terms of education?
Tell you the truth, I'm going to be brutally honest here, Lyle. I don't really know what the educational issues are specific to up in your part of the riding. Um, I know down in the schools that I'm in, which have recently been annexed, we do like inclusive education is what we do. So we have students of all levels and abilities in the classroom together, and there is some reaction to that in communities. People feel that, well, we're dumbing things down or we're trying to accommodate too many people at the same time. And it is a challenge to teach people at different levels together. But we're doing it. I'm an educational assistant, so I am definitely committed to the model of inclusive education because it all comes down to the foundation that everyone has the right, according to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, to be educated in their own home community, not be shipped off far, far away to a great place where you get visits from your parents every once in a while. So yeah, just continuing. I think continuing what we're doing, I think is working okay. We just have to make sure that we don't strip it too lean and lose our resources. I know a few years ago the province did a lot of stripping of they had a library that was available for lending to remote communities. And we used to do whole units like that. They'd get shipped in a box and unpack the box. And this is the unit we're doing. Well, that library just got like shuttered right out of the blue about, well, it was under the Pallister government actually. But yeah, there are workarounds. There are, everything's online now. But frankly, a lot of that stuff is American. I think it's very important that we keep our Canadian perspective in our educational materials. So yeah. Any
In
more
terms of
questions?
you mentioned respecting people in terms of if you were elected in terms of working with the other parties and provincially and federally, uh, does the Green Party have a comfort zone in terms of respect with working with the other parties?
I'm glad you asked that. We're notorious for working well with other parties. You might have heard of Elizabeth May, our leader, our co-leader, along with Jonathan Pedno. But she has been working in Ottawa along with one or two other Green MPs over the years in committees with other parties, and we work really well with others. I guess our spirit is not cooperation, or not, sorry, it's not competition. Like, we're into
Yes.
cooperation and consensus building. And like I said, we do our homework. When you're not actually in power all the time, you kind of get a better, you get to set your own agenda a little more, I think. Because when you actually get into a position of power, I think that what happens, I know this from a few jobs I've had, you go into work thinking you're going to get these things done in a day, and lo and behold, things come from sideways in all these different directions, and you get knocked off your plan.
Yes.
Well, we've been pretty true to our plan for a long time, and we've had a lot of time to research and prepare policy, and policies are just, to me, solutions for issues that we're dealing with. You create policies to address those issues, and so we have amassed a huge body of work that other parties are free to draw on, and we will share them, and we'll take them through our book. If they want to look at our book, it's wide open for anybody to take, and we'll share. So yeah, we're not mean people, actually.
Yes.
We tend, yeah, okay, yeah.
What are some of the other concerns that you're hearing from our constituency, Liz, that we haven't talked about at this point?
Well, there is the issue of affordability, affordable housing, and the economy, and trying to get that dollar to stretch. Like, the people are, they don't, people don't like to pay taxes very much. I've noticed they're not too thrilled, but part of paying taxes is having a good safety net. And I'm kind of thinking that if we uncouple from the American economy and some of the attitudes of America, we might do better for it, because they've been poking at us and our social programs for as long as I can remember. And it's always in a disparaging way. Oh, they're trying to sneak in privatizing our healthcare and education. They're trying to bring in these things, and they're trying to make socialism sound like a really filthy word. And so I'm looking at it more like, let's look at Europe. I hadn't looked at Europe this closely until recently. And there I see a group of maybe 20, over 20 countries speaking over 20 different languages, getting along, coming to consensuses, working on very real problems together. And a lot of them have very heavy social programs, and are very much more like what I would like to see Canada be like, than this push always for this belief that somehow private business is the only way to run things because they do things so much more efficiently. Well, my goodness, there's a dark side to that we're starting to really notice. I'm kind of finding that people were very concerned about paying taxes, but they're also very concerned about what's happening south of the border, and wanting to keep Canadian sovereignty. Like, there's a lot of fear right now, unprecedented times, right?
Yeah, right. So cutting taxes is not the answer to all our challenges in today's world.
No, we can't really, but what we could do, and we do have some policies toward this, is more fair taxation. And by that, putting more money into circulation, closing some of the loopholes that allow some of the very mega global corporations that operate here to tuck money away, to not really declare all of it, to keep much of it for themselves, and not put it back into circulation, pay taxes properly, and have it circulate through the economy like it would if it was in the hands of people who are actually spending a lot of their money to live in our economy. So, fair taxation would go a long way to releasing more dollars to make some of these programs happen, and to maybe release some of the taxation pressures that some people feel. One of the things that we have that some parties don't have is we have a we have a filter that we put all of our policies through. And the filter is to see what other residual effects it will have specifically on small and medium-sized businesses.
Oh,
So yeah, we're very concerned with the amount of the tax brunt that they carry, and how they are impacted hugely by some of the larger federal decisions that get made across the board during times of crisis or even just general policy decisions. So yeah, we're fair taxation would help to alleviate, help to add more money to the safety net, and hopefully, people can afford things. We have an idea of affordable housing too, uh, where we would get back into building housing like we used to back in the 1970s.
Yes,
We built a lot of social housing back then, and we could do that again with and not tying it, and also having real conditions that if you get this kind of funding and if you build this kind of housing, it will be affordable, and not affordable by today's inflationary standards, but back to that old standard where your housing should be no more than 30% of your income. So
right.
we would hold developers to that standard. So we've got a policy on that as well. Yeah.
Well, we always, as taxpayers, we expect the most, and nobody likes to pay taxes. So it's always a challenge to balance that budget. We
Not my
hear a lot
favorite
about
moment.
crime and drug abuse, Liz, and there's no doubt it's certainly a problem out on the streets and wherever you go, and no matter where we are in this country. What are the Green Party's thoughts about crime or reducing crime and helping with the drug abuse?
Well, I guess that does tie into some of the things we were talking about, Lyle, about dire poverty and the cycle of poverty is something that we would like to address. And the way to get people out of poverty is universal basic income, an experiment that was actually tried back in the late 70s in Dauphin. It was called Mincome. Do you recall that social
Yes, I do.
experiment? Yeah, and it
Yes.
was deemed very successful. So here's the thing: our welfare system offers no incentive to get off welfare. The moment you try and get a part-time job, it comes right off of what you're living at, which isn't really enough to live, and there's no incentive to break the cycle. So we're very much an advocate of universal basic income as a launching pad to break the cycle and allow people the opportunity that makes sense to move up in the world and to grab those opportunities and to make something of themselves and their children's, because what leads people to addiction and living on the street is helplessness, hopelessness. It's like where you end up when you're couch surfing because you can't afford a place to live, and then you end up no home, no fixed address, and it's just absolutely brutal how people find themselves in that cycle.
I'm interested in tax reduction, and I think we touched on it as everybody wants to pay less taxes, but how do we meet the expectations of our population if we don't have taxes and add to our taxes?
Well, I think studying where the money's going, like I said earlier, and tackling wealth inequity, uh, trying to, well, more than 33% of Canadians earn less than $40,000 a year, and we would definitely eliminate taxes on that group. And like I said, big corporations hide billions of dollars in profits, and we would ferret that out and to try and get everyone to pay their fair share. There was a little cost savings thing that our leader mentioned. The Prime Minister's office costs roughly $10 million to operate in a year. And she figures that if we're in power, we could do it for $1 million. So there's $9 million right there to get rolling on something. So
Yeah.
just look for the savings there. Yeah. Uh, Basically, yeah, making big business pay its fair share. And by that, I don't mean medium-sized businesses. I mean, the ones that have huge corporate structures and CEOs making hundreds of times more what the most low paid workers in their establishment makes. Back to more of an equity thing like it used to be, and it wasn't that long ago
Yeah.
that the owner of a company or the top person didn't make that much more than their employees. They had a slightly nicer house, maybe in the better side of town, but they didn't have 10 houses around the world with garages on each one with 5 cars in each. There's just something weird about this greed. You wonder what's enough. What is enough? So yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'd like to go back to the crime and
Mm.
the reduction of crime and drugs, and you had a couple good points about that. Um, do you feel if you're elected, Liz, that you could bring some changes to our constituents here in terms of the drug and crime rates?
I think so because we have in our riding, we do have crown land, we do have undeveloped places. We could build uh, what I would call, respite places of respite and peace where people could go and dry out safely. We might be able to do it affordably too, because we're not trying to carve out a bit of real estate in a very expensive place like Vancouver Island, for example. So I think if we put some, residential care facilities throughout with proper supports to get people to wean off the hard stuff and get fresh and get a fresh start. Uh, I think that we have to be careful not to label people too harshly. At certain points, people do make mistakes and they can do better. I think we're all concerned, though, about when people make mistakes and they are let go over and over and over again and eventually prove that they don't have what it takes to be a caring member of society and a danger to
Yeah.
society. I agree with that. And, it's been a bit of a revolving door. And I know people are quite afraid. Part of what makes them afraid is the inequity. You've got stuff, someone has less than nothing. If we, the more we address really root causes of poverty, the less we'll remove the desperation that leads to really,
Yeah.
random, not random, but pre-planned violent crime, opportunism, that kind of thing.
Our time is kind of running out on us,
Okay.
Liz, and at this point in time, I would like you to consider some of the messages or the message that you would really like to get out to our viewers in the constituencies of Riding Mountain. Uh, if you could do that in your closing thoughts, I would appreciate it, please.
Okay. Well, because it's such a large riding, it's really hard to get out there and knock on everyone's door. So I would just like you to know that if I don't make it to your door and you live very remotely, that doesn't mean that I'm not thinking about you and where you are. So if you'd like to reach me, you can reach me at liz.clayton@greenparty.ca. Send me an email. I'm going to be at the Ericsdale. There's a benefit for the food bank there, and I'm going to be there next Saturday, or sorry, this upcoming Saturday night. Just at my very very busy calendar here. But if you would like to meet and talk about things, I could see you at in Erickson on the 19th of April. And also I'll be making the trip up to the candidates forum on the 22nd of April. So if there's any questions you'd like to address or let me know like your personal issues, I invite you to send your stuff to my email and I'll see what I can, find out for you. And I don't really know everything that the Green Party stands on every single issue. And I don't have anyone slipping me answers off to the side here. It's very much a DIY thing we're doing right now. So I would like to help as many people as I can with their issues. So please feel free to reach out because a lot of us are in the same boat, and I think we all believe a better world is possible. And I encourage people to take a look at some of the Green Party policies and see if maybe they don't surprisingly align with your own. So I think that would be my final message that, just give us a look and see what you think. Yeah.
That is that's a very well note to end our interview or our conversation on this. And we take this opportunity to thank you for joining us here by Zoom on NACTV Coffee Chat. And
Thank
we
you.
wish you the very best in the next week and a half of your campaigning and through the
Mhm.
election day. And hopefully at some point in time, maybe we will get up to Erickson and meet in person. Thank you for joining.
And thank you for your respectful questions and time. I really appreciate that you're doing this too, right?
Well, that concludes our coffee chat with Liz Clayton. I'm a candidate for the Green Party here in Riding Mountain constituency. We thank you for watching, and I would like to remind you that vote as you please, but please vote. And until next time, stay healthy, stay happy.